Hey, what's up, everybody? Hump day. Hopefully, you all are doing well. Got a short article here, but some things in the comments raised some questions I had, and maybe it'll give you some things to think about as well. Give me some feedback on this. It's kind of thinking through things. Amazon agrees to pay 61.7 million settlement over claims it withheld tips from independent delivery drivers for more than 2 years. The $61 million settlement represents the full amount that Amazon allegedly withheld from drivers. The money will be used by the FTC to compensate the aggrieved delivery drivers. The FTC alleged that Amazon had promised to pass along the full amount of customer tips, but use the money itself because they're hurting, right? Amazon had advertised that drivers would be paid $18 to $25 per hour on top of all their tips. Pretty good. But it's my understanding that they grind pretty hard, that their workload is pretty substantial in a given day. I've seen some CNBC, I believe, clips on YouTube, some stories, and it looks like they grind pretty hard every day for that money. And the same with the Amazon workers that are fulfilling the packages in the warehouse. They look like they're really putting in work. But however, the company allegedly shifted to a lower rate and used the tips to make up the difference in pay. Now, this is coming from the perspective of somebody who doesn't care for Amazon, specifically Bezos. Obviously, I use Amazon services because who doesn't? I don't care for Bezos in particular. Wasn't saddened in any way to see his wife take half, although she's kind of a turd as well. But just keep in mind that that's where I'm coming from. But I do acknowledge that as much as there's a disparity, wealth gap, the whole taxation side, no, I don't believe that they are paying 0% tax. You're not going to get me on that. But I understand the importance of large corporations, even in the face of all of this talk of inequality and stuff like that, and that corporations are often too powerful. I get the necessity, and I love living in a country where an individual can become Scrooge McDuck, basically, and go swimming in gold coins, should they choose. I like knowing that upward mobility is there if I work hard enough for it. But at the same time, I never like to see people get taken advantage of. The everyday person, right? The little guy. These people that you'll learn about here, Robin Hood, etc., Wall Street Beats. I'm trying to stay away from that. Amazon agreed to pay $61.7 million to settle charges it withheld tips from its independent delivery drivers over 2.5 years, U.S. officials said on Tuesday. The U.S. FTC said the agreement settles a complaint that Amazon failed to give the full tip amounts to drivers in its Amazon Flex program. The $61.7 million represents the full amount that Amazon allegedly withheld drivers that we learned about above. The FTC is going to use that to compensate drivers. Let's get Boris Johnson off the screen there. Rather than passing along 100% of customers' tips to drivers, as it had promised to do, Amazon used the money itself, said Daniel Kaufman, acting director of the FTC's Bureau of Consumer Protection. Our action today returns to drivers the tens of millions of dollars in tips that Amazon misappropriated, and requires Amazon to get drivers' permission before changing its treatment of tips in the future. And this is something that's interesting. I don't know if they're going to talk about this below, but I didn't even know you could tip a delivery driver. I didn't know that. I had no clue. So my feeling, and with that small amount of money, and I'm saying small in the sense of 61.7 million. Think about how many, probably, see this woman here, how many packages is she delivering in a day? 20, 30, 40, 50 or more? And that's just one person. And then you multiply that by all of the drivers they have out there doing flex work. It seems to me that you would think that this happened over a short period of time, that much money in tips can be generated based on the volume they do over a short period of time, you would think, right? And especially since I've never even heard of the tip system. I don't know if you have or not. The settlement bars Amazon from misrepresenting driver earnings, pay, or percent of tips paid to drivers, or changing its handling of tips without drivers' consent, the FTC said. Amazon is one of several e-commerce firms that have been accused of misappropriating tips while promising to give the full amount to drivers. According to the FTC's administrative complaint, the company regularly advertised that drivers participating in the Flex program would be paid $18 to $25 per hour along with 100% of the tips you earn. And I would see some ads pop up, and I remember seeing those numbers there. In late 2016, the FTC alleged Amazon shifted to a lower hourly rate without disclosing this and used the customer tips to make up the difference. This resulted in hundreds of complaints from drivers, according to the agency. Okay, so here you go, 2016, so it was some time ago. And it makes you wonder how drivers knew that they were getting gypped on their tips, so to speak. The company reverted to its previous policy in August 2019 after the FTC began its investigation, according to the complaint. An Amazon spokesperson said in response to an AFP query, "While we disagree that the historical way we reported pay to drivers was unclear, we added additional clarity in 2019 and are pleased to put this matter behind us." Okay, you got caught. The company said its drivers play an important role in serving customers every day, which is why they earn among the best in the industry at over $25 per hour on average. And if so, that's really good. That said, they got that wrist smack just a little tiny bit, but they always have to try to put the positive spin on it. While we disagree, but look what we're doing now. Just, you want to see a company just one time, I'm sure it's happened, but you want to see them just one time come out and say, yeah, we effed up, we won't do it again, here's what we're doing going forward. Just, take a little responsibility. But let's get back to these dates here. In late 2016, the FTC alleged that Amazon shifted its hourly rate. Okay, so late 2016. But then the company reverted to its previous policy in August 2019. So that's actually a long period of time there. If we're seeing that correctly, that's 2.5 years there. It seems like a whole lot more money would have been generated in tips. Even if you didn't know that tips could be provided to an individual. If those are the numbers, those are the numbers. I would have thought that it would have been within a month or 2 months they would have generated that much money in tips. But perhaps it was just in select markets where tips were allowed. Because I don't think I've ever had anything delivered by a flex driver. Perhaps I have. I'm never home during that time, so I just don't really know. And there's never been a prompt to tip somebody. How about you? Has anybody ever been prompted to have that ability to tip somebody? Amazon should pay 4 times that amount. That's how they learn, and that would still be a drop in the bucket. Oh, well, somebody said that here. This is a drop in the bucket to Amazon, and punitive damages should have been higher. Maybe taking it directly out of Bezos' account. Getting on that McKinsey Bezos plan and taking half that money would have been something. Damn, Bezos, don't you have enough money? You have to steal people's tips. That is pretty dirty though, right? Say they promised me $18 an hour to 25, and in a particular day I only came out and averaged about $13 an hour. That, including the tips, they just put it in there and acted like that was part of the 18 they were paying me when consumers were actually funding that other $5 per hour. Just as an example, I'm against tipping. As such, the minimum wage is going to increase and in turn increase the charge for services. Hopefully that'll spend an end to this colonial era custom. So is tipping really a colonial era thing? I'm not up to par with my colonial era tipping, so Sam will tentatively take your word for it. Maybe. Exactly why I give them cash every single time. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. Does she really though? Does she really tip a flex driver? I don't know. Like I said, how often are you actually home when you get a package, right? Most of the time you're at work, or if you work nights, you're probably sleeping when they come. Note that this charge had to be brought by a federal agency. The Supreme Court held in 2011 that employers can use the Federal Arbitration Act to prevent employees from bringing class actions or even from suing in a court of law. I would bet big money that a private class action lawsuit would have gotten a lot more for employees than a government agency that just wants to look good. And that's kind of getting to what I said, that dollar amount just seems so small, doesn't it? Total greed. More, and more. Why are we tipping a delivery driver? Cultural, I suppose. Good. And then this was the comment when I was scrolling through these that actually made me think a little bit about this. It says, why does just the driver get the tip when the package arrives via the assistance of at least a half dozen people who get the goods from B to your home? That's a great point, right? It's what I talked about at the onset of the video. The people out there in the warehouse grinding, pulling packages, moving those on. Then you've got people sorting orders. There's probably another group of people batching them up for drivers. Obviously, the driver's got to do this, and that. So they're right. There are so many people in the chain. How do you just reward one particular person? I get it. The driver does the last leg. They bring it home. But that's what I often think about when it comes to restaurants. When you go to a massage parlor, for instance, or you get your hair done somewhere, your nails did, it's easy to tip that person because they're the ones directly doing the work. You build a rapport, have some jokes with them during the process. But when there's multiple steps, multiple people in the process, such as when you go to a restaurant, you've got the young, attractive female working the front because that's how it always works. Ladies, you know, you've got the person who may bring you the menu and your water that's not your waiter. You've got the waiter. You've got the people in the back cooking the food, the chefs, the line cooks. You've got the individuals in the back washing dishes. You've got the people who clean up afterwards. All of that stuff goes into it. How does giving a tip to the waitress help compensate those other individuals? Now, it's my understanding that in some restaurants, the tips are evenly divided, which I think is great. So is there some way they can kind of do something like that here? It seems like it'd be difficult to track, but just a thought, it made me think, like, this person's right? How does one person get the reward when there's so many people in the chain? All right, everybody, let me know what you think about this. Just a quick story. Just Amazon doing what it do. Take care, everybody. Be well. Have a great rest of your week.